What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. It's a Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 70 on this Thursday, March 28th, 2024. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy with you on a Thursday. A slew of recruiting topics to get into on the program today. Kevin Sperry is changing high schools. Big deal, not a big deal. We'll talk about it. Some big commitment dates are coming up for Oklahoma targets in the next week. We'll, of course, preview those a little bit. And a major OU target has a big decision to make about what sport he wants to play. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But CK, first, before we get into anything, happy opening day, man.
Where's the gear? What I thought we planned this out. You know what? He did.
It's under. I almost went full jersey, but then I was like, is he gonna go jersey? Because we should have collaborated a little bit better. But
we were like, hey, all right, opening day gear next week, everyone, and then we just didn't plan anything out.
I almost went jersey, but I was like, but if he's not wearing a jersey, I feel like it'll look silly, and so,
I got to make sure everyone knows.
I got Aaron Judge watching over me.
Yeah, we got the squad here, and this is something someone pointed out to me when they were watching the show. Odor is down here in the bottom corner, always saying what's up, but I had to let folks know. I was like, I have to get the championship banner in here somehow. So, but happy opening day to everyone who celebrates. Very excited about your World Series champions, the Texas Rangers. Got the Chicago Cubs today, so feeling good.
Yeah.
And we'll see how this season goes, man. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And in honor of opening day, we have a baseball topic a little bit later on in the show. That's what we call a tease. We'll get there a little bit later. But let's first start, I think, with Kevin Sperry. So Kevin Sperry is transferring high schools. Now, most OU fans are very familiar with Kevin Sperry at this point. He's been committed to Oklahoma for quite a while. 2025 quarterback. He's going into his senior year of high school next year. He came up from Texas to Carl Albert, which is obviously Midwest City, just about 30 minutes or so away from Norman this past season. Undefeated season, state championship, all that stuff that he came really to do. But now going into his senior year, he's leaving Oklahoma again. He's going back to Texas. He's going to transfer to Denton Guyer, which is where Jackson Arnold and Peyton Bowen, of course, went to high school, Eli Bowen as well. Collin, obviously fans were kind of a little uneasy about this, just in terms of this guy and his family who were so committed and everything that they literally moved to Oklahoma. Now they're leaving again before his senior year of high school. So I guess the big question that fans obviously have is, does this change anything? And should fans be worried about the move? What went into it from what you've been told of why Kevin decided to make the move? And again, should fans be concerned, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it?
Yeah, I want to lead off with the fact that I kind of got to pick his brain on everything. Going out to Austin, Texas, the Elite 11, the regional camp was over the weekend. Kevin Sperry went, performed very well, selected to the Elite 11 finals alongside Keelan Russell from Duncanville, who, if you don't know who that is, he is probably the recruit in the 2025 class with the most stock going up. Electric talent. Kevin Sperry, Keelan Russell, and KJ Lacey, the Texas commit, all three selected. I felt like Ty Hawkins, the TCU commit, should have been selected as well, but that's a topic for another day. We're here to talk about Kevin Sperry. And after being selected to the Elite 11, I got to talk to him a little bit, his family, and there's nothing really to worry about here at all, if I'm being honest to Oklahoma fans. And I think, if anything, OU fans should probably be pretty excited about this move, right? I think for a few different reasons. Number one, I'll start with probably what the casual fan wants to get into. How does this impact recruiting, his commitment status? Denton Guyer is one of those programs that Oklahoma has a ton of ties into, folks. I mean, yeah, it's hard to beat Carl Albert, right? But Guyer is definitely one of those spots. Like you mentioned, it wasn't too long ago an OU commit at the quarterback position was considered one of the best players in America while wearing the Guyer uniform. Gatorade Player of the Year, Jackson Arnold, running the show for the Wildcats, Peyton Bowen, Eli Bowen. It's just a program that has a number of different ties to OU. Nothing really of concern, but it does allow Kevin Sperry to set some things up for Oklahoma into the future. And what I mean by that, in this move to Denton Guyer, No, there's not a lot of 2025 recruits on Geyer's campus right now that are being targeted by Oklahoma. There are a few 2025 guys on that roster who are talented, but there are a ton of younger players at Denton Geyer who the casual observer of recruiting may not know about just yet.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you that Denton Geyer roster, they currently feature probably the best, if not one of the best, 2027 classes specifically, maybe in the country, not just the state of Texas. Zane Rowe, Kyron Hayward, they have a ton of young guys on the way up at Geyer, and Kevin Sperry being there to kind of lead them, guide them, but then also kind of plant a seed in their minds, being Oklahoma, being a destination for them. I think that's incredibly beneficial in the years to come, especially when we consider, again, the talent that is in that freshman to sophomore class at Geyer. I think the other part of this, though, why OU fans should be really excited, he didn't make this move because he's less committed to Oklahoma.
Sure.
He made this move because I believe he's more committed to investing further back into his family again. And what do I mean by that? You know, Kevin and his dad and his brother, when they were making this move happen, right, and they were going to Carl Albert and they were making this sacrifice, Kevin's mom is a professional in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. She's very good at her job. She had to actually hang back and take care of business, right, to help the family. While Kevin's dad and Kevin, they were out in Oklahoma at times. There were several weeks consecutively where they're commuting back and forth just to be a family. And that's not what you want for anyone, right? You want a family to be a family. And so if anything, this move, why Oklahoma fans should be happy, I think it's going to put Kevin a little bit more at peace and at ease mentally, because he gets to be a high school kid with a family again, you know, and this stuff is hard. We don't talk about this because this is kind of a podcast topic for a whole other space or world.
Yeah.
But like, recruiting today forces these young men to become grown adults in the blink of an eye. And it puts a ton of pressure, and it puts a lot of strain on people in their camp, and you just don't want that for anybody. And so I think for Kevin Sperry, this move is all about just being a normal family, a normal high school kid again, maybe takes some pressure off of his shoulders and allow himself to succeed still at a notable program, but also have the ability to put the helmet in the locker and then go home and have a little bit of normalcy again. And normalcy is hard to find in the recruiting space. When you can get it, you should have it. And so this is what, to me, more than anything, this move signifies.
Yeah, it makes complete sense to me. You know, I hadn't realized that initially, that, you know, his mom had hung back and she was just commuting up for every game. And that's insane. And that they have a really tight-knit family, obviously, and Kevin's younger brother is a talented football player as well, who will be coming up through the ranks in due time. But yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. And like you said, I mean, another benefit, it's not why he's making the move, but another benefit with getting to be hands-on with some of those Denton Geyer targets. And down the road, and we saw the impact he had on Carl Albert's roster. We talked about it a bunch. Marcus James, Xavier Robinson, who's on the team now, obviously, enrolled early. Trinae Washington, he's been working on Tristan Haynes, like laundry list of guys that maybe they end up at OU anyway, but I'm sure Kevin didn't hurt things. I'm sure he helped things quite a bit being there and kind of leading that charge. And now he can have a similar impact on Denton Geyer's roster, which already has, you know, a leg up with OU because of the Arnold and Bowen connection. So it works out for all parties. I think OU's going to benefit from it. Sperry's family will benefit from it. And Sperry will probably get better as a player as well, playing, you know, at a very high level in Texas. Not to discount Oklahoma high school football, because it's a lot of really good players here as well. But Carl Albert is an elite, like, they out-talent everyone they play. Yeah. And you know, you get better from, you know, being at Carl Albert, being in that program, but I'm sure Kevin will develop more as a player this next year than maybe necessarily he would have another year at Carl Albert. Maybe. I think that's reasonable to think that's possible as well. So
I do want to mention, to your point, just to quickly back it up, this Geyer staff is incredible, folks. Like,
Right.
one of the best strength and conditioning programs in the state of Texas specifically. I know that was something that was really big for the Sperry family making that move because, like you mentioned, they want to continue to develop as a quarterback, as a player. They're very high on the ability to get Kevin bigger, faster, stronger at a place like Denton Geyer. And then Reed Heim, the head coach at Denton Geyer, was in the college ranks for years. And that staff reflects him being an experienced former college coach. And so, again, to your point, it's not about Carl Albert. It's about being able to be a family again, but also getting elite development at a talent level like Texas 6A football, for example. So really good move. And it does arguably help him in different ways better himself as a quarterback. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, Mike Dunn, the head coach of Carl Albert, I've had the pleasure to talk to him many times. Great guy. He's built a monster. And that was the main thing that I got to see Carl Albert play in person a couple of times last season. That was really one of my big takeaways was they don't need Kevin to do that much. I mean, they're just so much better than everybody else, quite frankly. They had a couple close calls throughout the season. And when they did, Kevin rose to the occasion and delivered. The state title game against Del City, who was also undefeated. They had a very close game at Guthrie in the regular season. But, yeah, I think that it's a great move for really all parties here. And Carl Albert will be just fine as well. They'll be just fine. So look forward to seeing him play down there next year. And he gets put on the black and silver, right, that Arnold and Peyton Bowen and everybody got to wear in the past. The synergy is just off the charts right now with that QB room. Elsewhere on the recruiting side, a couple of big commitment dates are coming up before next week's show with you, Collin, next Thursday. First up is tomorrow, Tory Blaylock, who we've talked about before, four-star running back from Humble, Texas, obviously 2025 kid, composite number 17 running back, number 33 overall player in Texas. He's announcing his commitment tomorrow, Friday. You have a crystal ball in for Oklahoma. You still feel pretty good about that, I guess, one day out from Blaylock, signifying where he's going to play at the next level.
Yeah, I still feel really good about it, to be honest with you. I think Oklahoma, going into this 2025 cycle, kind of knew that spots were going to be relatively limited, at least for now. And so what that has allowed Oklahoma to do is essentially hone in on specific targets at the running back position and really prioritize or emphasize guys they feel are perfect fits. It's been very apparent that Oklahoma sees Tory Blaylock as a perfect fit. And that's been reflected to this point, right? I think that was emphasized during Tory Blaylock's junior day visit prior to the dead period. That was the weekend when Tory was with a number of other Houston area recruits, including a guy we're going to get to talk about here in a second, and another we're going to talk about here in a second. But that whole weekend shaped a lot. And I think specifically that weekend really shaped the way Tory Blaylock perceives Oklahoma. And so, listen, there are some serious contenders. I believe he dropped the top 6 the other day. Ohio State is in there. I want to say Oregon, Texas A&M, a few other blue blood type programs. So OU definitely will have to continue to fight the next 24 to 48 hours, whatever it may be. But in the end, I obviously, like you mentioned, have my crystal ball pick in. I believe I set the confidence level at a 6 or a 7 overall. I don't feel the need to really change the way that it's set. I think Oklahoma's positioned itself well with Tory Blaylock. I think OU is in the driver's seat. And as long as OU can close over the next few hours, I think that the Sooners have a really good chance of being the pick whenever Tory Blaylock makes his final decision.
Let me ask you this part on Blaylock before we shift to the next guy too. We talked last week. I mentioned it on the Monday we did on Tuesday this week. You and I talked about DeMarco Murray for about 10 minutes, and then it never saw the light of day because decisions were made before we get the show out. The impact of DeMarco Murray staying. Let's play alternate reality. DeMarco Murray took the Ohio State job. Is Tory Blaylock still coming to OU tomorrow? I mean, the impact already of keeping DeMarco, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at, and landing a guy like this, because he's been recruiting that position, obviously, at an extremely high level, and this is just continuing that if they do, in fact, land him tomorrow.
Yeah, man. Obviously, Tory is still evaluating decisions going into his final announcement, but I don't even know if he's really considering Oklahoma all that much if he were to stay on this pace. Now, why I mentioned that, I think if DeMarco Murray had left Oklahoma, you would have seen Tory Blaylock change his decision day. Because at that point, you're looking at these programs potentially entirely differently. Because in this alternate reality, not only does OU not have DeMarco, Ohio State, who is in the top 6 for Tory, has DeMarco. So then you're like,
Yeah.
this is a completely different world that you have to live in. And so
it shifted, yeah.
It would have been something that turned this recruitment completely on a 180-degree turn. And I think that even just Tory Blaylock keeping his commitment date what it is says to you how important it is that DeMarco Murray ended up staying at OU, because if he hadn't, I think Tory Blaylock's decision looks wildly different, and I firmly believe he probably would not have been able to make a decision by 4 o'clock-ish tomorrow.
Right. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Obviously, keep up with Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma.247sports.com. Become a VIP subscriber. Collin's been all over Blaylock's recruitment, and he will make a decision tomorrow, Friday. Again, if you're listening on Friday, today. And we'll be sure to let you know whenever he makes that public and official. Another one that we're watching for coming up next week. I think you said next Wednesday, right? Landon Rink, a guy we've talked about a lot on the program over the last several weeks, months, whatever. Defensive lineman from Cypress, Texas, composite 4-star, number 36 defensive lineman in the class, number 53 player in Texas. Mm-hmm. He's making his commitment next week. So there's still a little more time on this one for there to possibly be some twists and turns. But as of now, you have the pick in going not in favor of the Sooners. Where are you kind of at right now with Rink? And again, it's hard to say, it's recruiting, but it's still about a little less than a week until he does make that decision. Any chance for topsy-turviness here in your estimation with Rink before he makes it?
Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned that Junior Day weekend. I went and saw Landon at Under Armour Houston a week ago, and he actually mentioned that on that Junior Day at Oklahoma with all those other Houston area guys, he got to hang out with Tory Blaylock, who we just talked about, and Jonah Williams, who we're getting ready to talk about. And I think what was cool is he kind of took me through the fact that being around OU, being around the coaching staff, but also being around these guys that he knows well, continue to sort of further OU's standing within his recruitment. But at the same time, like I mentioned around that time when we recorded the show, I believe that Thursday week of, he told me he was going to go home after that camp, get up the next morning, fly to Ohio State, and sort of begin a little bit of a stretch of unofficial visits. So since then, he's visited, to my knowledge, Ohio State, USC, and Texas A&M unofficially. Just got done with a Texas A&M unofficial visit, I think a day or two ago. I mean, literally sometime this week. And then shortly after that, revealed this commitment date, which is Wednesday, April 3rd. He's going to make his decision at Cy-Fair High School. I believe 9 a.m. Central Time is the announcement date and time set for him. And so basically you have until the morning of next Wednesday to try and turn the tide. But like you mentioned, I put a pick in, talked to a lot of sources I trust in college staff worlds to the high school ranks and whatever else, and ended up putting my pick in for Texas A&M for, in my belief, good reason. I think Texas A&M nailed that unofficial visit that ultimately probably led him to reveal that decision date. He revealed that it's going to be between Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Ohio State as kind of his top three, the three hats on the table. And so right now, obviously, I have the Aggies winning that recruitment and being the hat selection 9 a.m. that Wednesday. Can Oklahoma turn the tide? I personally, just being real, I don't see it right now. I think there's a lot of ground to cover, especially because if you think about it, the other two schools in contention in this top three, Texas A&M and Ohio State, they just hosted him for unofficial visits. Oklahoma hasn't. And to my knowledge, he does not have plans to return to OU's campus over the next 6 days. So it's going to be difficult for Oklahoma if OU were to try to turn the tides. And so essentially, again, the ebbs and flows of recruiting, you might be potentially on the verge of some great news with a 4-star running back as soon as this week, and then next week, one of the top defensive line targets for you might be landing elsewhere because he just visited 2 of the other top 3 members of the list that you're part of. So, yeah, man, I think Oklahoma, Todd Bates did a really good job and has done a really good job of recruiting Landon Rink. Ohio State and Texas A&M were going to do the same, and so that's kind of how I see the race playing out right now.
Absolutely. And again, that's coming up next Wednesday, like you said. So, again, become a VIP subscriber. If anything changes or anything, any news coming out of this that maybe gives OU fans a little bit of hope, Collin will let you know over the next week. So, great time to hop aboard as soon as illustrated right in the thick of spring camp and everything else. It's a great time to become a member and hang along with us throughout the spring and summer, and then obviously going into the next season. And we'll keep an eye on Landon Rink. That's next Wednesday. Whenever he makes that decision official next Wednesday morning. Mm-hmm. Elsewhere, Jonah Williams, who, like you said, we teased this at the beginning with the baseball talk. So Jonah Williams obviously is a guy we talk about a lot. He's an elite talent, 5-star linebackers. What we have, Matt, number 12 player in the class, according to us at 24/7 Sports. Obviously, we talked about him a bunch. It's an elite level talent. Mm-hmm. All the big schools are after him. Also, Oklahoma feels like they have a shot, but now a new contender is emerging as if having to battle with all the other big-name blue blood programs isn't tough enough. Jonah Williams, which we've talked about before, is also an elite baseball player, and he looks to probably play both at the next level, potentially at OU, but potentially he might just be a pro right away. Collin, this has been a problem that's hurt OU baseball in the past. Guys like Bobby Witt, the list goes on of guys that were committed to play baseball at OU, but then they get drafted early or high enough, I should say, and they go ahead and just sign out of high school. They never make it to OU. How much of a threat is that happening with Jonah Williams? Because we talked about, his recruitment and OU trying to get themselves in position for this elite full player. Feels like a perfect fit for Brent Venables' defense, play that cheetah role, but at the end of the day, he may just end up playing baseball, and then this whole thing is moot. What are you kind of hearing on that front as far as the likelihood or the possibility that Jonah Williams could end up just playing baseball at the next level and never even making it to college?
Yeah, so for context here, folks, obviously one of OU's primary cards to play in the world of recruiting is its ability to get the dual sport athlete schedule down.
Yeah, right.
And in one instance, you have a Taylor Tatum, who is the number 1 running back in America, but because of Oklahoma baseball, you're able to land him and allow him to pursue the sport he has a ton of passion for. Jonah Williams is kind of that weird blend between these two examples. One being Taylor Tatum, an elite football player, the best at his position in the country, basically a top 32 talent or around that sphere, but wants to play baseball, and Oklahoma has utilized that to its advantage. But then the other example that you brought up actually applies to a football player in Bobby Witt Jr., who elite. We obviously have seen what he's done with the Royals organization and so on. He was committed to play at Oklahoma. We actually talked to him when he visited OU a couple of times. It was awesome, dude. You could tell, his dad played at OU. He was very excited about potentially playing at Oklahoma. But when the MLB draft comes calling, folks, that's a different sphere. And here's why I say this. Jonah's a little bit different than Taylor in the fact that Taylor plays both sports. But kind of the story goes here, and I'll tell it quickly. Our own Mike Roach, who's a national recruiting analyst for us at 24/7 Sports, he has a good friend who has worked in the Major League Baseball scouting sphere now for a very long time. Apparently, there's not a lot of footage that you can find of Jonah Williams playing baseball. And so Mike's friend, who formerly was an MLB scout, goes and scouts Jonah Williams at Galveston Ball High School. Comes back and says, listen, this is probably a first-round-ish type talent in Major League Baseball. Yeah. He's incredibly raw as a baseball player, but from a tools perspective, we're talking about a 6'3" to 6'4" center field type prospect who clearly has what it takes at the plate and has that dynamic speed, change of direction ability to navigate the bases, essentially just says this is the type of player that, while raw, again, he's not a finished baseball product. Major League Baseball scouts, they drool over this kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that significant? Because I've seen a lot of fans be like, well, he wants to play both and all that. One thing we talked to Jonah about at Under Armour Houston was what happens in this scenario where Major League Baseball comes calling. And I think what he said was very significant, specifically in that he said, if the first round is where I'm selected, that's life-changing money. I mean, that's hard to turn down. And some fans might roll their eyes or say, but NIL, this is a whole other gargantuan of a monster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we're talking, I'm looking at the current previous slots for the MLB draft last year. In 2023, the signing bonus value for each slot in Major League Baseball, at minimum, at the 36th overall pick last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers signed their guy for $2.36 million.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad.
Not bad at all, especially when you think about the fact that $2.36 million would immediately become what the name, image, and likeness collective of whatever school Jonah Williams lands at would at least have to match, right? Because this is the other thing I was thinking about when I saw some fans debating this in like our Facebook comment section. What a world, by the way. I saw some fans going back and forth, and my thing was, if you are at an even playing field, right? I try and do this in my head a lot. If you're in an even playing field where college football and college baseball are offering you $2.36 million, Major League Baseball, you just were the last pick of the first round. Let's say you're being offered $2.36 million. So the funding is even. Let's take money out of it. You're not playing a contact sport for the same amount of cash. I know that Major League Baseball's minor league system, pardon my French, it sucks, right? Like it's
you gotta bust around. Yeah.
It's not fun, but this is also Jonah Williams we're talking about. We're talking about first round pick in this scenario. It's not like the first round pick types are having to just drag it out in like single A ball for 5 years, right? Like the advancement, hopefully for him, would at least get him to like double A relatively quickly. And I mean, again, living in the DFW, I would love to play double A ball for Frisco. You know, I mean, there's some pretty solid double A organizations. So
Tulsa Drillers, double A.
I'm telling you, man, like if you take money out of the equation, you're getting paid the same amount of money to be hit less. Mm-hmm. And arguably you're playing a sport that has a much longer shelf life for you as a dynamic athlete, rather than doing both of these sports, football and baseball, at one time and trying to make that work not just for your schedule, but your health. Because then what we're not talking about is that inevitably that dual sport athlete schedule ends. Mm. And now you're debating, do I go through the Major League Baseball draft or the NFL draft, depending on how those careers go for you. So I take this very seriously. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I think you're looking at Jonah Williams' recruitment, and if you were to make a top schools list, in the same way you'd throw up Oklahoma, Ohio State, Oregon,
the MLB logo,
Texas A&M, you got to put Major League Baseball's logo on that list, man, because it's clear to me in talking to Jonah and then working through my own research, like, I would be curious to hear your take on it, Josh, as a big baseball fan. But yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense for a guy who clearly is an elite talent in both sports, but really has to kind of weigh the options here.
Yeah, you don't get first-round picks not signed very often. Pretty rare. Mostly because guys who go in the first round, the teams already know he's going to sign. Because the team is not really planning to blow a first-round pick on a guy who then doesn't sign, because then you're just out of luck. That happens sometimes, but it's relatively rare. The question Jonah would have to decide essentially is, wherever he thinks he's going to go. Because again, teams are not going to draft him unless they have a very strong idea that he would sign. But what he'd have to decide basically is where I think I would land. Would it be better for me to just play at OU and then in 3 years enter the draft again, and then I can improve my standing? That would have to be a decision. But if you go high enough, it's just not really worth it to do that. I mean, if you go and that's where Bobby Witt landed, and they've certainly had other examples OU has had in the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of pitchers under Skip that went high enough that they said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just go now rather than play 3 years of college and then see if I can improve it. And even beyond the first round, we've seen that. Guys in second, third round. And there's sometimes guys choose to play anyway. Jacob Golson's the one who got drafted last year I can't remember what round, second, third round, somewhere in that range. And he decided to still come to OU, and he's at OU right now. So, I mean, it does go both ways sometimes, but that's the decision that Jonah would have to weigh. And then also just, what does he actually want to play? I mean, which sport does he love more? I mean, a lot of these guys, I was talking to James Nesta, who obviously is doing this right now, playing both, at the newcomer media day, 3 weeks ago. I basically asked him is the plan just play both for as long as you can? And he said, yeah. Like, he didn't really have too much of a plan outside of just give everything he has to both, and then it'll kind of work itself out, sort of a thing. But if Jonah has his heart set on baseball, it's going to be hard to turn down a potential, first round selection, that kind of money. So a lot of decisions obviously to be made. The draft is coming up this summer, and he'll have to figure it out before then where his heart lies the most. How much is he heart set on playing college football and at least seeing where things stand after that? And how much is he just, if I have the opportunity to play pro ball right now for a couple $1 million, I got to do it. That's what he's got to figure out. So,
so many things that you just brought up were awesome points, and there were points that I never considered. But like, even down to the fact that you mentioned the draft is in the summer. Official visit season is in the summer, where you're probably getting ready to make your commitment, and you're going to these schools. They're literally ironing out a budget for you to come to their campus, and they're going to try and get you. This dude's summer is going to be insane. But then also, like you mentioned, I mean, at some point you have to not only evaluate the passion, but like what your stock could be in the next 3 years. Like, for Jonah Williams, is it about an organization? Is it about a slot? Obviously, if you go high enough, whether you like baseball more than football or not, that type of money you just can't turn down. And he basically said that as much. But like, man, I'm looking at it. Let's say you went in the top 25. Last year, that slot value was $3.17 million. And that it's probably only going to be higher this year. Top 20, 3.75. Top 15, $4.5 million. I mean, can anyone fault this kid if he opts to go to the Major League Baseball draft, capitalizing on his stock now? Because this is the other thing. I'm not going to pretend to know how much playing college baseball actually statistically improves your stock, right? Major League Baseball's draft. But like, the way I see it right now, Jonah Williams' stock in baseball, arguably, and I'm just presenting this as a conversation topic, is it going to be higher? I mean, because the next 3 years for him are him playing both baseball and football. And that takes a toll. So
sure.
I think Jonah Williams is a heck of a baseball player. He could easily go much higher in the next MLB draft, but then also you're balancing the NFL draft as well. And what does that 3 years look like, even if you're a heck of a talent and you're trying to balance those? So I don't know, man. This is something to me that's going to become one of the biggest storylines in all of college football recruiting for this cycle. Because,
right,
just to reiterate, I mean, this guy's a top 12 overall player in America. And like, the way that he tested at Under Armour Houston, the final numbers verified, I mean, I don't see a world where he drops out of the 32. There's no way. I mean, at this point, it's like he might be firmly stuck in the top 15 to 20. So, yeah, this is such a fascinating concept to follow. And when we're talking about one of the best players in America, specifically in the world of football, like, there are teams who are going to be hosting this guy for official visits potentially, and they will not have any idea whether or not he's even going to be considered a football recruit by the end of next month. So,
right. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to keep up with. That's for sure. These two-sport athletes, man, it's going to be more and more common, it seems like, especially for OU. They've found their niche into being really good in this area. We talked about it a lot with Taylor Tatum and James Mesta, obviously going back to Kyler Murray and other guys, Cody Thomas even. So it's going to be fun to watch, though. And you got to imagine if he does end up deciding to go to college and wanting to play both, that's going to give OU a little bit of a leg up because they've done it and they're doing it right now. And obviously, it's an area that Skip has been very good at. So keep an eye on it. I'm sure we'll talk about it more as the months unfold. We get closer to the summer and all that good stuff. I think that's just about it. As far as spring camp, we had open practice again yesterday. I put about a 9 or so minute video up of practice footage on the YouTube channel. So it's right there for you. If you're watching the show on YouTube right now, it's right over there. Just click on over. It really is not to just like pump my own work, but there really is, you get to see a lot of the new guys in there. I got at least a little bit of every position, got to see lots of Jackson Arnold throwing the ball around, see some of the new tight ends, the the running backs look. Caleb Hicks looks incredible, by the way. So mosey on over to there. We had a bunch of player interviews last night as well. Tom's had some practice observations up for VIP members yesterday. So lots of good spring camp coverage is on the YouTube channel as well as the site right now. And we'll continue. We still have obviously a few more weeks until the spring game on the 20th. And so we do want to pump that a little bit. Also, Devon Mitchell is a monster. Not that we didn't already know that, but he's like the biggest guy out there. And he's supposed to be a junior in high school right now. It's ridiculous. Jackson Arnold looked great. Very, very sharp. So, yeah, lots of good stuff there on the spring camp side of things. And we'll be sure to continue to update you and cover you. And James and Tom and I will be back on the show next Monday to talk about the latest at camp as OU keeps this thing rolling. It'll be April next week. So getting closer to that spring game. So, CK, enjoy your opening day. Good luck tonight. Rangers, Cubs. The Yankees are in Houston this afternoon. So I know you're kind of half pulling for us.
I'm all the way pulling for y'all. We're not friendly over here with the Astros fans. I don't care. We can be friends outside of that, but Houston, absolutely not. So
absolutely. So look forward to it. Everyone enjoy your opening day. Have a good weekend. Again, we'll be back on Monday with James, Tom, and myself. That'll be the first show of April as we get further into spring ball and getting ready for the spring game. We'll get into some more basketball transfer portal stuff too as that continues to kick up and rev up more and more and more. And again, all the latest from spring camp and everything else that happens between now and then in OU sports. That's it for now. For Collin Kennedy, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.